கைப்பாயது பூக்களாகுருளம் பொன்னழுதுகளாகணம் பொன்னவனு யாத்திர ഈശ്വരനാനന്ദലം പ്രാർത്ഥന കൈപ്പായത് പൂക്കളാകുരുവനം പൊന്നഴുതുകളാകണം.
Thank you, Yagapriya. I take great privilege to introduce. We have a vibrant and energetic HOD, Mrs. Shamina Ma'am, Department of Biochemistry, to give a special address.
Thank you, Lalita Ma'am. At the foremost, I'd like to welcome all of you for the program. Our first initiative DPT sponsored SCHEME College program for the session. So this departmental activity program is extremely about how to make the students, that is to enrich their knowledge and motivate them and initiate them to undergo the research part. So this title that we chose, before we had a detailed discussion with our DPT coordinator, college coordinator, with our principal and vice principal, sir, and then we decided, because today, because of COVID-19, we have a lot of things we need to stay at home, where we have to undergo some research part in the computational part only. That is, we were not able to enter into the wet lab. So that's why we thought that instead of students being muted at home, why not they work their research part in the computational biochemistry and computational chemoinformatics, etc. In that idea only, we had chosen this topic for our first webinar. So it is a great initiative that our Manju ma'am has taken, because she called an eminent chief guest for us, Dr. Shivashankar ma'am, the prominent and the app leader, I can say, for the bioinformatics in Coimbatore. She has been running a lot of programs in this pandemic, extremely for the bioinformatics application in the biological fields. So we welcome you, ma'am, on behalf of RVS, management, principal, vice principal, and the DPT staff scheme coordinator. We welcome you for the program, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And I also welcome all the dignitaries, my staff faculties, who coordinated this program to conduct in a smooth way. And I also welcome the DPT coordinators from the different departments for joining over the session, and the students of life sciences and the computer science who had registered themselves to know about the knowledge about computer-aided drug design. And before entering into the session, let us have a small note about what is this DPT START scheme is about. Actually, you have to say that DPT START scheme is the one which our college have been recognized by New Delhi. So here we have a lot of credits, that is the students, faculties, as well as the community. They are going to get enriched because of the activities and the credits given by the DPT STAR scheme. So once the college is being recognized, it is going to be notable, that is the student has to be enriched, that is the students going to get a lot of credits in it. Even when they carry out a degree out of the college, example, if they are going to be biotechnology with the BSc biotechnology outside, if they say that they are from a DPT STAR scheme, surely this particular thing is going to enhance their credits, whatever, whether they go for a PG, whatever program they go on with. So that much credits the DPT STAR scheme is going to have. So we have, that is the RVS has blessed with such sort of credits, and you students are going to be the beneficiary part. I want everybody to join in what all programs the departments are going to conduct in the future and enhance your knowledge over there. So with a short notice, I leave the forum to the discussion about the drug design. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I invite Mrs. Manju, ma'am, Associate Professor, to introduce our eminent resource person.
Yes. Good afternoon, one and all present here. So it is my privilege to welcome the chief guest of today's function. So we have got Dr. S. Shivashankari Madam amidst us. So Madam has got a big resume of about 8 pages. So I will just take 2 minutes of your time to tell about her. So Madam has done both MSc and PhD in bioinformatics, and Madam has got 17 years of experience. She has presented close to 15 papers, publications in 15 papers in both national and international journals. Madam has presented several papers in the conferences held both in India and abroad. And Madam has, has given guest lectures to close to 30 guest lectures, and she has attended several uh, refresher courses that is conducted across Tamil Nadu and other places. And Madam has organized several conferences and workshops based on computational biology and immunoinformatics. And the special mention is Madam has presented a paper at the international level in Australia. That is, the topic is in silico functional annotations of hypothetical ORF in human chromosome 2 at Texila and second international scientific conference that was held in November 2015. And Madam has visited several countries, which includes Australia and Japan. And a special mention about her awards and achievements. Madam has secured a special award. One second. She is a recipient of Summer Research Fellowship for Teachers 2019 from Indian Academy of Science, that is National Academy of Sciences and Indian National Science Academy, and has worked under Dr. Dinesh Gupta, that is ICGEB, New Delhi, during April 2019 to June 2019. And she has also awarded 10th rank at the university level during her undergraduation in biochemistry by Bharatiyar University, Coimbatore. And she has also served as an assistant professor and head in PG Department of Bioinformatics in Kongunadu Arts and Science College, Coimbatore from June 2005 to April 2011. And presently, Madam is serving as assistant professor in the UGC Innovative Program in MSc Bioinformatics at Nirmala College for Women, Coimbatore since 2012. Once again, I welcome Dr. S. Shivashankari ma'am. It is a privilege to have you as a chief guest for the first DBT program of our college. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Manju, ma'am. Ma'am, the session is handed to you, ma'am. You can proceed.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. Very good evening to one and all. First of all, I would like to thank the management of RVS, principal, vice principal, the HOD of Department of Biochemistry, and all the faculty members of Department of Biochemistry of RVS College for having given me an opportunity to be among you, to share my views and experience in the field of computer-aided drug design. So, as DBT always supports interdisciplinary activities, I heard that many computer science students are also part of this particular webinar today. Bioinformatics is actually a blend of both life sciences as well as computer sciences. So today I thought since everybody is behind drugs, everybody is behind designing molecules which can work against COVID-19. So I thought maybe I will just throw a few insights into this particular field called computer-aided drug design. So this is actually a very basic lecture where I will be dealing with about different methods that is available, what are the steps that is involved in doing a computer-aided drug design. And as ma'am has already told, we can have our discussion at the end of my presentation. Now I will start my presentation. So can you see my slide, ma'am?
Yeah, ma'am, it's visible.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Yeah.
You can go for.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Is my slide show?
Yeah, ma'am, perfect. You can.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, fine. Yeah, thank you. So before starting my session, I just wanted to give a few definitions, what all we will be discussing today. So whenever we talk about a drug, so all the life sciences students, they might be knowing, I think drug is nothing but it is a medicine. That is what all the life sciences students will know. But since some computer science students are also available, just want to give you a definition what is a drug. So you might be thinking drug is something which is illicit, which is a bad word, which always comes in the paper, newspaper. So drug addict. So there are so many negative things for this word called a drug. But actually, in medicinal field or in medicinal chemistry, in pharmaceutical industry, whichever molecule which is capable of producing some pharmacological response, we call it as a drug. So it is not necessarily all the time the additives, but it is also some. It is also the ones which are useful to which are useful in controlling or preventing a particular disease state also. So in short, drug is any molecule which is capable of producing any pharmacological response. So what do you mean by a pharmacological response? Pharmacological response is nothing but anything which can prevent a particular disease or which can subside a disease or which can completely cure a disease, that we call it as a pharmacological response, or which is able to control the disease state, we call it as a drug. Okay, so it is any chemical substance that can be used for treatment or cure or prevention or for diagnosis of disease, or which will enhance the physical or mental well-being. So not only treatment and cure, any molecule which can enhance our physical or mental well-being is also called as a drug. So physical and mental well-being means what? So which helps us to be fit both physically as well as mentally. Those molecules also we call it as drug. So this is the general definition that we use for defining a drug. But there is also one more definition which will help to know about the drug at a molecular level, that is at a structural level. So whenever any pharmaceutical industry is releasing any drug molecule, whenever a pharmaceutical company or whenever a research person is releasing a drug for any particular disease or for any particular disease state, what happens means how they would have used that particular drug means that drug, whatever drug that has been released into the market, whenever the person consumes the drug, what happens inside the body? So the drug, it will go and bind to a macromolecule and it will produce the pharmacological response. So here the macromolecule, we call it as the drug target. So whatever drug, suppose if you have a headache, you take a tablet and your head, after some time you don't feel the headache, right? So how it is happening, the drug, the medicine that you are taking will go and bind to a specific macromolecule. After binding to the specific macromolecule, our body will not be able to sense the pain. So we are not able to feel the pain, so our pain gets reduced. So this is how all the painkillers work. Actually, the pain is there, but the sense of pain, we will not be able to feel it. So that is how all the painkillers will be working. So this drug, not only painkillers, any drug, if you take even antibiotics, if you take antibiotics, we know antibiotics are nothing but they are drugs that has been designed against living organisms. For example, against any bacterial infection, against any viral infection, any drug that we use for killing other living organisms, we call it as antibiotics. So living organisms means what? Any bacteria or virus, whatever microorganisms is going to harm us. If you are going to design a molecule which will kill that microorganism means, then that will be your antibiotic. So drugs may be different types, painkillers, antibiotics, energy boosters. There are so many different classifications of drugs, but all the drugs, the general mechanism of action will be, they will go and bind to a macromolecule, and after binding to the macromolecule only, it will be eliciting the pharmaceutical response. So what is this macromolecular? What is this macromolecule called? This macromolecule is called as a drug target. So it may be any protein, or it may be an enzyme, or some cases it may be DNA, or in other cases it may be RNA also. So any protein or it is a DNA or an RNA. In few cases, we also have lipids as well as carbohydrates also acting as drug targets. But most of the drug targets, most of the drugs are designed to act upon proteins as drug targets only. So because we have different forms of proteins, right? We have enzymes, we have receptor molecules. So different all forms of proteins can act as drug target. So how drugs are generally designed? So there are two important approaches. One is the traditional approach. The second one is the deterministic approach. So traditional approach, it is a screening approach, and it is generally a trial and error approach where we do not know about the mechanism of disease, and it is really time consuming and laborious. So screening approach means we try to screen for compounds. We just use a trial and error method, and we try to just give it just with a probability, with a luck we try. We'll just give this particular drug and see. Even whenever you go for an allopathic doctor, now you present your symptoms to your doctor. What the doctor will do is he will try to guess what might be your problem, and he'll give you a particular medicine. So, and after 2 days, if it doesn't work properly, you go again to the doctor, and the doctor will think, okay, this is not the symptoms, this is not the disease state. Oh, let me try some other drug like that. He will try to give. So, same way in the traditional approach of drug designing, what happened was they did not know about the exact mechanism of disease that is happening, because since the mechanism of action is not known, generally they will try to screen compounds, and they will try to find out whether any particular compound by luck is able to cure a particular disease or not. Since it is not, it is a trial and error approach, it is always time consuming, it is really laborious. Now what we try to follow is called as a deterministic approach. It is also called as rational drug design. So where we try to identify the target that is critical to the disease. So this particular target only I was talking, it is nothing but it is your drug target. It can be either in the host or in the pathogen. Okay. So what happens means, suppose if you take the example of COVID-19, so there are two important approaches by which we can design drugs for infectious diseases. So what are infectious diseases? Infectious diseases means those diseases which are caused by microorganisms, because of infection by microorganisms such as bacteria, virus, or whatever microorganism. If it is infecting our body, we get this infectious diseases. So even COVID-19 is an infectious disease because it is caused due to infection by SARS-CoV-2 virus. So whenever you want to design a drug for an infectious disease, how the deterministic approach will do is it will try to identify which molecule can act as the drug target. So this molecule can either be in the host or in the pathogen. So in case of COVID-19, human beings, we are the host, and the pathogen is the virus, that is SARS-CoV virus is the pathogen. So there are two ways by which we can control it. One way is identifying an important protein or important macromolecule which is really required for the survival of the virus. We can choose that, okay? And what we will try to do is we will try to design molecules which will go and inhibit that particular protein which is really important for the survival of the pathogen. So when a protein that is really required for the survival of the pathogen, we are trying to inhibit, what will happen? It will not be able to multiply, it will not be able to survive, and it will ultimately, the infection will be reduced. That is one approach. Another approach is we will try to identify targets in the host. So what happens whenever a pathogen is infecting us, the pathogen will come and interact with the host cells proteins. So what we try to do is we will try to block the protein in the host so that the pathogen cannot go and bind. So like that, there are two approaches by which you can either choose a target either from the pathogen or from the host. So generally, whenever we try to design drugs for viruses, it is always better to choose target from the host rather than pathogen, because we know that the viruses are very clever enough. They don't have their own replication mechanism. They infect the host, and it uses the host machinery for its replication. So even if you try to inhibit the pathogen's important protein, what it will do, it will again incorporate its genome into the host genome, and it will try to use the host machinery for its replication. So generally, when for which kind of infection we will try to choose targets from the pathogen means it is kind of bacterial infection. So most of the bacterial infection, what we try to do is we try to identify the target that is present in the pathogen so that the pathogen can be killed once you target that particular macromolecule. So in the deterministic approach, what we try to do is we try to identify one macromolecular target which is really important for the disease mechanism. And then with that particular macromolecular target, with that particular drug target, we try to prepare and screen inhibitory compounds, those compounds which can inhibit the action of that particular drug target. And then we will the success of this particular rational drug designing, it depends upon the accuracy and the high resolution of the inhibitory compounds that we have in hand. So what happens is we try to screen small molecules, we try to screen compounds which inhibit the macromolecular target, and those the success of this particular drug design will be based upon the accuracy on the structure of the small molecule, because whenever we try to study the interaction between the drug and the drug target, the structure is not proper, then the interaction will not be proper. So the accuracy of the structure depends upon the success of this particular approach. Okay. So in the first slide itself, I was discussing about macromolecular target. So whenever you design a drug molecule, it goes and binds to its macromolecular target, and after binding only, it produces a pharmacological response. This binding is always specific. Okay, so binding of a drug to the target with suitable affinity. So that is very important. So any drug, we cannot give in high doses also. We have to find out the drug, even with lower doses, it should be able to have a higher affinity with the target. Then only it will have fewer side effects. That we have to always keep in mind. So we cannot simply say that this particular drug is going and binding with the target. So I have to give 500 milligrams of this 500 milligrams of this particular drug. If you say like that, generally it is not a good drug, because the higher the concentration, more will be the side effect. So our aim is to identify one drug molecule, even when at low doses, it should be able to inhibit the macromolecular target, and it should be able to bind to the target properly, so that there will be lesser side effect. So this is the ultimate aim of any drug design. Even now, so many drug repurposing is going on. Drug repurposing means for many of the diseases, we have drugs which are FDA approved, we have approved drugs. Even they are approved drugs, because of the side effects, they are trying to find out better alternatives which can be given at lower dosages to minimize the side effects that is being caused. So this point we have to keep in mind always, that is, any drug that you are going to design, it should have a higher affinity with the molecular target, even at the low dosage. That is very important point. Okay. Next, we'll see about the drug targets. So I told you drug targets are nothing but these are the macromolecules to which the drug binds and produces a pharmacological response. So what are the different types of drug targets if you see? So main classes of drug targets are proteins. Generally, almost all the proteins, one form of the protein can be used as a drug target. So what are all the different types of proteins that can be have? It can be either a cytosolic protein, or it may be a membrane-bound protein. So membrane-bound proteins are generally, they are receptors. Okay, so we all know GPCRs, that is G protein coupled receptors, we have tyrosine kinase receptors, we have hormone receptors. All those receptors, they are all membrane bound, they are all transmembrane proteins. So even receptors can act as drug targets, and some of the proteins which are present in the cytoplasm, in the cytosol of the cell, also can act as drug target. And it is very important, whenever you are going to design a drug that is going to be in cytoplasm, our drug should be capable of entering the cytoplasm also. That is very important point. So just simply, if you say that this particular drug is going and binding to the drug target, that is not enough. It should also reach the site of action. So if your protein is a cytoplasmic protein, if your macromolecular target is a cytoplasmic protein, then the drug that you are going to design should reach the cytoplasm then only the action can take place. Okay, so this is a very important process. So whenever you're choosing proteins as drug targets, the proteins may be either receptors, or it may be cytoplasmic proteins, or it may be enzymes. Any type of protein can act as a drug target depending upon the disease that you're working on. So whenever you're designing a drug, you also have to keep in mind that the drug should go and reach the site of action. If it is cytoplasm, it has to go to the cytoplasm. If it is mitochondria, it has to reach mitochondria. If it is nucleus, it has to reach the nucleus. If it is membrane, it has to reach the membrane. So all those points you have to keep in mind when you are designing the drug. And the second type of drug targets, the very rare cases, like we choose DNA or RNA as drug targets. Generally for anti-cancer, most of the anti-cancer drugs, they work with DNA or RNA because we know that cancer mainly caused due to changes in the DNA and RNA. So we also choose DNA and RNA as drug targets. And it is not always popular. Only in rare cases we choose DNA and RNA as drug targets. Okay. So there are two important approaches for computer drug discovery. One is called as rational or ligand-based drug design. Another one is called as structure-based drug design. So both of them are two different approaches for doing a computer drug design. In ligand-based drug design or in rational drug design, we start with a ligand and then we end up with a molecular target. Now we have to I have to define here few terminologies. So ligand, I think most of the life science students, they will be knowing what is a ligand. So we know that many of the hormones, how do they work, how the hormones are working in our body. So hormones, they go and bind to their receptor. So if, for example, if it's a thyroid hormone goes and binds to the thyroid hormone receptor, and then only the thyroid hormone will be able to work. Similarly, if you have insulin, we all know that insulin is a hormone which regulates the blood glucose level, right? So insulin, how it will do? It will go and bind to the insulin receptor, and then only it will be able to maintain the blood glucose level. So here, this insulin is an example of a ligand, and thyroid is an example of ligand. So ligand is nothing but it is any small molecule. So ligand is a general term that we give to any small molecule which binds to the macromolecule and then produces some action. So that such small molecules, we call it as ligands. So if it is a receptor, then the ligand may be either a neurotransmitter or it may be a hormone. So like that, ligand is a general term we use for any small molecule which binds to the macromolecules and do the function. Suppose if it is going and binding to a macromolecule and produces a pharmacological response, that small molecule we call it as a drug. Okay, so in computer drug design, the first step itself, we don't call any compound as a drug. Only if it completes all the phases, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, all these trials, then only we will be calling them as a drug. Initially, we don't call it as a drug, we just name it as a ligand, because that is a general term that is given to any small molecule which binds to the macromolecule. So in the rational drug design, we start with the ligand molecule. Suppose I have, so from our previous knowledge or from some experimental studies, we know that one particular inhibitor or one particular small molecule is having anti-cancer property. So what I will try to do, it is having anti-cancer property, it's been done experimentally and it has been proved experimentally, or from the traditional knowledge, we come to know that particular compound is having anti-cancer property. So what I will try to do is, what I will try to do is with that particular small molecule, I will try in search of the macromolecular target. So to which macromolecule this particular inhibitor is going and binding, this particular ligand is going and binding. So I will start with the ligand and then I will try to find out the target. Such approach we call it as ligand-based drug design, because we know the ligand first and then we try to search for the macromolecular target, and then we will try to do a drug discovery. So that we call it as rational drug design or ligand-based drug design. Next one is structure-based drug design. Structure-based drug design, here we start with the protein. That is the target, the drug target. we know that we have identified one particular target which is really important for a particular disease mechanism. So if you take for cancer, there is one protein that is called p53. It is a tumor suppressor protein actually. So this particular protein, when it is expressed, it will control cancer. When it is not expressed, when it is not expressed, then what happens means then cancer comes. So how the scientists will try to work on it? So when p53 is not expressed, or when there is mutations in p53, it will not be able to suppress the cancer. Okay, so what the scientists will do is they will design drugs so that they can rescue the mutations in p53, so that p53 can do the function. So here we know that p53 is the target. We have p53. We know that if you are able to modulate its activity, if you are able to stimulate its activity, then the particular disease is going to get cured. So now you have the 3D structure of that particular macromolecular target. Now, based on the 3D structure of the macromolecular target, we try to design small molecules which can rescue the function of that particular macromolecular target. So that approach we call it as structure-based drug design. In structure-based drug design, we start with the 3D structure of the macromolecular target, and then we end up finding out small molecules which is capable of rescuing the activity of the macromolecular target. So rescuing the activity is nothing but either stimulating its activity or inhibiting its activity or modulating its effect. Anything can be done with the help of the 3D structure of the macromolecular target. Okay. The third important approach is combinatorial chemistry. So combinatorial chemistry, it is nothing but it is an approach where you have a macromolecule. This is actually a cheminformatics approach where we have different fragments of small molecules. So you have many fragment libraries, and we try to combinatorially synthesize new compounds. So what is combinatorially means? We try different combinations of the fragments. We excuse me. We try to combine the different fragment molecules, and we end up with this with one particular small molecule. So this we call it as combinatorial chemistry, where we try to generate hundreds and hundreds of compounds with the different fragments that are available. And the ligand-based approach, how we will work on ligand-based approach. There are two important methods by which you can work on a ligand-based approach. This pharmacophore and QSAR. So pharmacophore is nothing but it is a set of structural features that is important for the biological activity in a receptor. So you have a macromolecular target, and what are all the structural features that is required for the activity means, then we try to model that we call it as a pharmacophore. So what are the features means, what are all the hydrophobic features, what are the aromatic features, what are the hydrogen bond acceptors, what are the hydrogen bond donors, how many cationic molecules are there, how many anionic molecules are there, everything we call it as pharmacophoric features. So a set of pharmacophoric features that is really required for activity of the biological activity of the receptor, then that we call it as a pharmacophore. So in ligand-based approach, we generate a pharmacophore, and based on the pharmacophore, we try to generate the 3D structure of the macromolecular target. And in QSAR stands for quantitative structure activity relationship. Quantitative structure activity relationship means we try to enable a relationship, we try to devise a relationship between the structure and activity of the compound. So structure and activity of the compound means, suppose if it is having 5 hydrogen bond donors, it is able to bind with this much affinity. So like that, we try to devise the relationship quantitatively. Quantitatively means in terms of numbers. You know, 3 hydrogen bond corresponds to this much affinity. 2 hydrophobic contacts corresponding to this much affinity. Like that, we try to devise a relationship between the structure and activity quantitatively. So that is how we try to design. We try to design molecules based on ligand-based drug design approach. Okay. So what is the best strategy on computer drug design means? Generally, structure-based drug design that is coupled with combinatorial chemistry. That is coupled with combinatorial techniques. So we what we try to do is, you have the 3D structure of the macromolecular target, use that macromolecular target and design a basic skeleton. Suppose I have an enzyme as a molecular target. So I know that any small molecule will bind to the enzyme only at its active site, right? So enzyme will have an active site. I will try to design a basic skeleton of the active site. So what is a basic skeleton of the active site? So my small molecule should be complementary to in shape to that particular active site. Only then my small molecule, my drug will be able to bind to that particular enzyme. So first, after identification, the 3D structure of identification of 3D structure of the macromolecular target, we will try to design a basic skeleton of that particular active site. And then what we try to do is we synthesize combinatorial derivatives. So based upon this particular skeleton of the active site, we just try to synthesize combinatorial derivatives. That is, we try to mix and match the fragments that is available in the fragment library to find out one compound which can actually bind to the active site of the enzyme. And then we test empirically, experimentally, we test whether that particular whether the particular compound is capable of binding or activity with the macromolecular target. And then we try to analyze the crystal structure. We try to, because we all do this computationally. After that, we need actually crystal structure. So after, if the particular synthesized compound is actually having an activity or binding, then we crystallize that particular compound for the best ligand. And then we refine the predictions to get a better molecule. And again, we go for second round of combinatorial synthesis. So combinatorial synthesis, generally, here we call it a synthesis. We don't synthesize in the lab, but we have fragments where we try to fix different fragments computationally to get a overall small molecule. Okay. What are the different stages in drug design? So the first step is identifying the target and validating the target, and identifying a lead compound, identifying optimizing a lead compound, studying the target lead interaction, and then we go for in vivo, in vitro, and clinical trials. So here I need to define what is a lead compound. So lead compound is any compound which is starting as a lead for the drug design. So lead na namakku theriyum. We know that in class we call it someone who is a representative of all the class. We call it as a leader, right? Same way, a lead molecule is nothing but it is a compound which is starting material for a drug design project. So you identify one starting material that is acting as a lead, and we have to optimize that to get a better drug molecule. So that is what you mean by lead compound. Now we will see what happens in each stage in detail. Okay. So identifying the target is the most important step in any computer drug design project, because based upon the success of the drug target only, your drug design project is going to be successful. How to identify drug targets? So we need to know the complete mechanism of action of the disease under study, in which disease you're working on, and you should have a complete mechanism of action of that particular disease. And then from that, you have to identify the drug target, and that is both target specific as well as selective between the species. This is very, very important. Selectivity is very important, because when you are designing antibiotics, what happens means we will be generally identifying a macromolecular target that is present in the bacteria. For example, antibiotic, penicillin was designed, it is the first antibiotic, we all know that. So what happens means, we all know that there are certain pathways which are common in both the microorganism as well as the host. So if you take glycolysis means it is going to be the same in human as well as the bacteria. So nothing is going to change. Maybe the structure of the enzyme may be little different, but the pathway, glucose is converting into glucose 6-phosphate, all the 10 reactions of glycolysis is not going to change in any of the organism. So what we have to do is, whenever you're choosing a macromolecular target in the pathogen, you have to be very careful that that particular macromolecular target in the pathogen should not be similar in structure to any of the protein in the host. Let us take, for example, penicillin has been designed against bacteria. So whenever you give a penicillin injection, bacterial important protein that is required for survival of bacteria will be killed, and the bacteria will be killed. So if there is a protein which is similar in structure to the bacterial protein, means what happens? Penicillin will come and bind to the host protein also. So what will happen in host cells? So if that particular protein is really important for the survival of host also will die, right? So that is very important. So whenever you're choosing a drug target, you have to be careful enough about the selectivity between the species. So this is one problem that is causing the side effects. So why we are having side effects for many of the drugs, because the drug, although we choose selectively between the species, instead of going and binding to the correct macromolecular target, the drug also binds to some other non-specific compounds, and the function of that non-specific compounds is getting affected. Because of that, we get side effects. So that is the thing. So whenever you're choosing a drug target, you have to keep in mind that it is not only target specific, it should also be selective between the species. So the one that is being chosen from the pathogen, it should not have any analog or homolog in the host. That is very important. And the target specificity and selectivity within the body is also very important. So suppose you want to target some enzyme in liver cells, then it should not go and affect the pancreas. So like that, the selectivity should be within the body also, between the species also. So whenever you're choosing enzyme specific inhibitors, your target should be it should be unique enough. It should not share any similarity with any of the protein in any other organs of the body. So that is very important. So choosing a drug target, you have to keep these 2 points in mind. What are the points? One is it should be specific, and it should be selective within the species as well as within the body. And targeting drugs to specific organs and tissues. So whenever you want to target drugs to specific organ or tissues, and it should be to that particular organ only. So beta 1 and beta 2 receptors in hearts and lungs. So whenever you're choosing, whenever you want to target lungs, then you have to choose those receptors that are specific to lungs, those that are not present in any other organ. Then it will go and target that particular lung. If it is going and binding to other even other organs means that may become lethal also. So whenever you're choosing a particular macromolecular target, if it is going to be specific to a particular organ, then you should check that it should not affect any of the proteins in any other organs of the body. That is a very important point when choosing a macromolecular target. Next, after choosing a target, we need to validate the target. So validation means we need to check whether the chosen target is really it is going to work against this particular disease or not, whether it is going to be successful in our drug design project or not. So for that we have so many tests. We choose bioassays to test whether the target, if the target has been inhibited, really the disease has been controlled or not, whether the target is being activated, whether the disease is being controlled or not. Like that, we do bioassays, or we do in vivo or in vitro tests that will help us to validate the chosen target. And most of the time we do a high throughput screening. High throughput screening is nothing but screening thousands of different screening in one single experiment, that we call it as high throughput screening. So what we try to do is we choose targets and we do a high throughput experiment to validate whether the target is really the correct one that has to be chosen for that we have chosen for our drug design project. Screening by NMR. Screening by NMR is NMR. We know that it is a structural elucidation method. What we try to do is we try to have compounds. We try to have the 3D structure of the macromolecular target, and then we really screen whether that particular target is a good one. And we also do an affinity screening. Affinity screening means we find out whether it is having the capability of being a target, whether it is able to bind to other molecules or not. So all those things we do to check whether the chosen target is the correct target for our drug discovery project or not. Next thing is lead identification. So first we chose the macromolecular target, then we did the screening, validating it, and then we go for lead identification. So I told you lead is nothing but it is a starting material, it is a starting compound for your drug discovery project. And so how to identify the lead? So lead, it can come from natural products. So nowadays we are not concentrating on the synthetic compounds. We are concentrating mostly on the natural products, either from the plant sources or from microbial sources. or from marine sources or from animal sources. Even venoms and toxins are used. So captopril is one. It is taken from the snake venom, which is used against blood pressure actually. So it may be toxic, but we try to give it in a way that it is not toxic. So we try to screen for natural compounds initially, and then we have some medical folklore. That is, we have some traditional information, but most of the information are not validated or not proven scientifically. So we can also search for such medical folklore, and then we can work on those compounds, and then we try to scientifically prove the importance of that particular compound. And last step, we are not able to find anything from natural product, or we're not able to find out any from medical folklore. We screen for synthetic compound libraries. We try to have synthetic compound databases. So synthetic compound databases are done by the chemistry people. So what they do is they do many reactions and they end up with many novel compounds, and they put up in the database, and we try to search for those compounds from the database, and then we try to choose any of the compound as the lead compound. And we can also choose from the existing drug, that is called as drug repurposing. So even for COVID, we are trying to do drug repurposing because it can be very fast, and we need not go for phase trials because it has already been approved. So since it is approved, we are trying to find out any existing drug can act against COVID-19 or not, because the drug discovery process can be the time taken for the drug discovery project may be minimized. For example, Me Too drugs. Me Too drugs are nothing but these are drugs which are similar in structure. So we try to choose drugs which are similar to the existing drugs, and those drugs which enhance a side effect, or which will reduce the side effect, or which will try to minimize the side effect by giving the in lower dosages. Like that, we try to search for these sources for identifying a lead compound. And there is also some other method by which you can start from the natural ligand or modulator. Suppose you are working on some neurological disorder, or you're working on some neurotransmitter problems, then what you can do, you can choose your natural ligand for receptors as a lead compound. So for example, adrenaline, we know that it is a hormone. So it is, suppose you want to, it is a fight or flight hormone, we know that. When you want to work on that particular adrenaline receptor, means you can start with adrenaline as the lead compound. So you can start with that, and you can make changes in its structure to make it a proper drug. And if you are taking enzymes, you can choose natural substrate. So any enzyme will have a substrate which will get converted into a corresponding product. If you are choosing enzymes as drug target, then you can choose its natural substrate as a lead compound, and you can make changes in the structure and you can work on it. Example, we have the encephalins, and the enzyme products also can be used as lead compounds. So you have an enzyme, not only the substrate, it gives rise to the product. Excuse me. It gives rise to the product. We can choose the product of an enzyme pathway also can be chosen as a lead compound. And we can also go for combinatorial synthesis or computerized searching for structural database. So you can either do combinations of different fragments to get a new compound, or you can do computational searching in the existing databases. All these methods will help us to identify the leads. Next one is lead optimization. So identifying a lead can be done with the methods explained above. After identifying lead, we need to optimize the lead for our drug discovery process. What do you mean by optimization? Optimization is to tell that whether the lead compound can be really successful as a drug or not. So for that, we need to test two properties. One is drug likeliness and another one is ADMET properties. So drug likeliness means, excuse me, any compound to act as a drug, it has to follow a rule called Lipinski's rule of 5. So Lipinski is the name of the scientist who devised a rule. It is called as a rule of 5. Actually, there are 4 rules. Why it is called as 5 means it is all the rules are multiples of 5. Excuse me. So all the rules, the values and the rules will be multiples of 5. So it is called as Lipinski's rule of 5. So what are all the 4 rules? 4 rules will be there should not be more than 5 hydrogen bond donors. That is the nitrogen or oxygen atoms with more than one or more hydrogen atoms should be only 5 or less than 5. And there should not be more than 10 hydrogen bond acceptors. Again, nitrogen and oxygen atoms without hydrogen attached. So those atoms, they should be only 10. So there should be less than or equal to 5 hydrogen bond donors and 10 hydrogen bond acceptor. And the molecular weight of the compound should be 500 Daltons. It should be less than 500 Daltons. It should be really a small molecule. Then only it can pass through your circulatory system. And then octanol water partition coefficient, which is called as log P, should not be greater than 5. So log P is a measure of the hydrophobicity of a compound. So why we are interested in log P means, so we know that our cell membrane is really hydrophobic in nature because lipid bilayer. Cell is a lipid bilayer. So it is hydrophobic in nature. It is water hating. It is having water hating capacity. So any molecule to cross the hydrophobic membrane, it should be little bit hydrophobic, right? Then only it can cross the cell membrane. But think about your circulatory system. Think about your blood. So whatever drug that you're taking, first it has to be circulated along the blood. Then only it can reach the target for action, right? So blood, what is the nature of blood? Blood is highly hydrophilic. It is water liking one. So your log P value should not be your drug should not be completely hydrophobic nor completely hydrophilic. Only then it can circulate along the blood and only then it can pass through the cell membrane. So based on these two conditions, they have devised an ideal value, that is the log P value should not be greater than 5. Only then it will have the required hydrophilicity to pass through the circulatory system, and it will have the required hydrophobicity to pass through the cell membrane. So these are the 4 rules. So why they are talking about hydrogen bond donors and acceptors means any drug that is binding to the macromolecular target, the binding should not be very strong. That is very important point. Suppose I'm choosing a drug and it is forming a covalent bond with the target, means what happens? Covalent bond, we know that is a very strong bond. It will not be broken, right? So once a drug is going and binding to the macromolecular target, it will not be dissociated from the target, and what will happen? It will cause continuous side effect in the body. So whatever molecule that you are introducing into the body, after some time, after its work is over, it has to be metabolized and it has to be excreted. Otherwise, it becomes toxic to the body. So that is very important. So the binding of the drug and the macromolecule should be very weak, such that after the function is over, there should be dissociation between the drug and the target should take place. So which is the ideal bond that can happen between target and drug means it is a hydrogen bond. So hydrogen bonds are very weak bonds, and once its function is over, then they will be easily dissociated and they will be excreted from the body. So that is why we are talking about hydrogen bond donors and hydrogen bond acceptors. So these are the 4 rules that has been devised by Lipinski. So once you have chosen a lead compound, you need to test whether the lead compound is passing this test or not. If it is not passing this test, one violation is allowed. Suppose if the violation is 1, it is allowed, but not more than 1 violation is allowed. So if it is not, if it is violating at least 2 of the rules, means then you have to rule out that compound and you have to work on a new lead compound. And the second important property that we have to test during optimization is called as ADMET. ADMET means, I think all the life science students will be knowing, absorption, distribution, metabolism, excretion, and toxicity. So it should be absorbed, it should be distributed inside the body, it should be metabolized, it should be excreted once the function is over, and it should not be toxic. Only if it is having all the 5 properties, then you can choose. Suppose you are choosing a compound, if it is going to be toxic to the body, then you have to rule out that compound and you have to work on a new lead compound. So this is what we do during lead optimization. We try to check whether the lead compound that we have chosen is really having a drug-like property and which is following the ADMET rules. Okay. So after choosing a lead compound, then we have to find out the interaction between the macromolecular target and the drug. So I told you this is drug target lead binding. So this process we call it as docking. So docking is the process where we try to position a lead compound, a ligand molecule, in the active site of a macromolecular target, and we calculate the binding affinities. That is important. So it is a computational method where we try to fit a ligand molecule, or we fit a lead molecule into the macromolecular target site, and then we try to find out the binding affinity. And there are many algorithms. This is how the computational chemistry, this is how the computational sciences people can help the life sciences. There are many algorithms which will help to calculate the binding affinity between the macromolecular target and the drug. And these algorithms, we call it as the docking algorithms. And each algorithm will try to find out different orientations of the lead compound so that it can fit to the macromolecular target site, and it is able to bind with higher affinity with the macromolecular target. And some of the docking programs, very popular docking programs, Gold, Autodock, Ludi, Hexidella. So Autodock is actually academically licensed free software only. We have Schrodinger software, we have Cresset, we have MOE. So there are so many commercial softwares are also available, but Autodock is a very, it is accepted for publication also, and it is very user-friendly software for doing molecular docking. So I told you earlier, docking tries to find out the best matching between two molecules. So how the two molecules can interact with each other. And you should always keep in mind the lock and key mechanism. So we know that enzymes, they bind to the substrate with the lock and key mechanism. So your drug that you're choosing, and your lead compound that you're choosing, should have complementary in size, in shape, as well as properties to that of the active site of the macromolecular target. So that it can fit in a lock and key mechanism. Initially, computer drug design, we try to choose lead compounds which will fit exactly like a lock and key. Nowadays, we are even trying to design molecules which can do an induced fit, which can go and fit itself by inducing the conformational change in the active site of the macromolecular target. That is also possible. And our ultimate aim is to identify the best interacting conformation, that is, in which particular position the lead is able to bind to the macromolecular target, and to get a more stable complex, that is the complex which is having a minimum free energy, so that the complex that is formed is highly stable. So this is how we try to do. So imagine this is a protein, this is a macromolecular target you're working on, and you have a ligand molecule, this is a small molecule. So you have the cavity, you have the active site. So this small molecule, it goes and binds to the active site, and they form a complex. So all softwares, all the docking softwares, they try to do this particular, to get this particular complex. So how all the docking softwares they work is they work with generating molecular surface of the protein. So we can see from this picture, we can easily identify there is a cavity here and we have to fit it, but we are not doing it manually, right? So how the computer will be able to identify there is a cavity, there is an active site, how the computer will be able to understand? The computer will generate a molecular surface. Molecular surface is nothing but you have a protein molecule to generate some imaginary circles within that. So this is a surface. So it will generate imaginary circles within the macromolecular target, and it will identify where a circle is not present. So that means there is a cavity, because wherever there is a protein region is there, then circle will be there. When the protein region is not there, you have a cavity. So this docking software, they try to identify the cavities, they try to identify the active site in the macromolecular target by choosing by incorporating the molecular surfaces, and you have a you find out the active site of the cavity in the protein. And it is always said that there are 10 power 4 orientations generated. So all docking softwares, they try to generate different conformations to identify the active site of the particular macromolecular target. Okay. This molecular docking, it is not only used to identify the interaction between the macromolecular target and the drug, it is also used in another important field called as virtual screening. So virtual screening means screening thousands of compounds or a large data set for a particular molecular target. You have one particular target, and you want to do, you have thousands of compounds in your database, and you want to find out at least 5 compounds which can bind with this particular macromolecular target, means that we call it as virtual screening. Virtual screening means virtually we are screening for the large data set to identify small molecules which can bind to the macromolecular target. So this can be done with the known structures of organic compounds. We have libraries of virtual compounds. We have programs, the Autodoc, the docking softwares, they have programs to calculate the affinity for protein. And this will help us to narrow down to small number of possibilities. So we know, we after identifying a lead compound, we not only dock the lead compound with the macromolecular target, but we also do a virtual screening to identify the lead compound. So how to do virtual screening? You virtually screen for the known organic compounds or from the virtual compound library, or you calculate the affinity for the protein. This will help us to narrow down to a smaller number of possibilities. That is, you have 1,000, for example, I have 1 million compound in a database, in a particular chemical database, means then I can choose some 10,000 compounds, and I can screen and then find out at least 10 compounds which is capable of binding to the protein. So this one only is being done by the Government of India's Drug Discovery Hackathon. I think most of you might have heard it. So in Drug Discovery Hackathon, what government is aiming is, there are so many databases, so many compounds that is available. So if one scientist is sitting and working and he's trying to screen that, so there they give which is the target. They give the target protein also. They ask us to screen the young people, young scientists who are working in the field, and we have to screen it, and we have to give them a list of the top 10 compounds which is capable of binding with the macromolecular target. So that we call it as virtual screening. So by virtual screening also we may end up with identification of new lead compounds. And the surface representation, and that will help us to identify the cavities and protrusions that is present in the docking surface. And surface matching is matching matching the lead compounds to the cavities in the particular protein, and identifying a bind and optimize a binding score between the small molecule and the macromolecule. Okay. And the second important applications where docking can help in drug discovery is post prediction. This is a very important point. Post prediction means poses are nothing but different conformations. So you can have, I told you, the cavity, the active site, and the lead compound should have complementarity in shape and size. So to attain this complementarity, the small molecule or the lead compound should be capable of taking different conformations, that is different structural forms, in which particular structural form it is able to bind to the active site. That is called as post prediction. Post prediction means identifying the best conformation in which the lead compound can bind to the macromolecular target. So why we need to find out the best conformation means, in the other conformation it will not be able to bind to the macromolecular target, and at that particular conformation only the affinity between the macromolecular target and the drug molecule can be more. Okay. What is the other importance of molecular docking? Is it is generally using it is helping us to identify the geometry of the binding site and to predict the binding affinity. That is, we have a scoring function. We get a score which helps us to tell out how much affinity is there between the macromolecular target and the drug. This will be useful for the rational design of drugs. Now coming on to the types of docking, there are two important types of docking. I told you, rigid docking and flexible docking. So rigid docking means here the drug, it binds to the macromolecular target just like a lock fits to a key. And here both the receptor and both the protein, that is both the macromolecular target as well as the lead compound, both of them are kept rigid. There is no flexibility in the macromolecular target as well as the ligand. But in case of flexible docking, it is also called as induced fit docking, where we try to generate rotations of molecules. We try to produce different conformations of the molecule that will induce structural conformations in the macromolecular target, and it will be able to bind to the macromolecular target. So although lock and key it is the most simplest one, it is less time consuming. Flexible docking right now is available only in the commercial softwares that will help us to do a induced fit docking. Okay. What are the other types of docking? So docking can be done both at the protein and the small molecule, or between protein and protein also. You have one protein, it can bind to another protein. You can use docking for predicting the interaction between two proteins, and you can also use docking to predict the interactions between protein and nucleotide also. So you have protein ligand docking, or protein docking, or protein nucleotide docking. So this is an example where you have ligand protein docking. So you have, see, first this is the protein that is shown in yellow color. They have shown the backbone structure, and here these dots, they represents the spheres to fit a cavity. So this is the cavity. The software has identified the cavity in the protein, that is active site in the protein, and it has fit many small spheres inside the inside the cavity. So what will happen next step? What it will do? Suppose this magenta color, this purple color one, it is the drug. So the drug, what it will do is it will go and bind, or it will go and place itself in the region where the spheres are there. So because there only your active site is there. So this the program will be the docking program will be designed in such a way that the drug molecule or the ligand molecule will go and find out the spheres in the macromolecule, and it will place itself in the spheres, so that when it places itself in the sphere, then it will try to orient itself. It will try to rotate itself, so that it is able to establish any hydrogen bonding with the macromolecular target or not. And we place a ligand to match the positions of spheres. We place the ligand, and then we check the chemical complementarity. That is what I told you. So first what we try to do, we try to find out the cavity, and we place some small spheres, and next we place the ligand on the spheres, and then we try to match the ligand to the position of spheres, and then we check for the chemical complementarity. We check chemical complementarity between the spheres and the chemical complementarity between the macromolecular target and the ligand compound. Okay, so what type of interactions may take place between the drug and the target? So it may be electrostatic. I told you previously itself, it should not be very strong, so that it will not be metabolized or excreted. It should be a little bit weak, so that you have it can be, after its function is over, it has to be eliminated from the body. So it may be electrostatic forces of interaction, or it may be electrodynamics. There is generally van der Waals forces, and some steric forces also possible. Because of entropy, there will be some steric forces, or some solvent related forces are also involved. So because of solvent, because of hydrophobicity, the small molecule can bind to the target. So these forces will exist between the drugs and the drug target. And we also have hydrogen bonds that we have already discussed. Apart from hydrogen bond, we have either electrostatic forces due to charges, or we have electrodynamic forces due to van der Waals interactions, or we may have steric forces due to entropy changes, or we can have solvent related forces due to the presence of solvents in the neighborhood. Okay. And the typical workflow is we choose a target, we choose a ligand, then we do prepare a target. So any docking program, so you choose a target and we choose a ligand, and then we have to prepare the target. Next we have to prepare the ligand, and then we go for docking, and then we have to evaluate the docking result. So what are all the key stages? So I told you, first we need to prepare the target, and then we have to prepare the ligand. So during preparing the target, what all is needed? We should have the 3D structure of the target. That is very important. And it should be, the structure should be biologically active and stable. The structure should not change. It should be stable and it should be biologically active. And that we have to do the first step. Next, we have to identify the active site. I told you, because any receptor or any enzyme, the binding will take place only in the active site. So we need to identify the active site in the receptor or the ligand. And then in the ligand preparation, what we try to do is we try to choose ligands either from databases, Zinc or PubChem databases, and or it can be sketched using ChemSketch. So this is one software. Suppose you have a combinatorily synthesized a new compound, means then there is a software called ChemSketch which will allow you to draw the compound. Or you can search for the compounds from PubChem or Zinc databases. These are publicly freely available databases from where you can choose the ligand molecules. And then we have to go for docking. So generally preparation of receptor is only big, but ligand we need not to prepare anything. We should have the 3D structure of the ligand molecule. That's it. And then we go for docking. Docking, it is to find out the interactions between the receptor and the ligand, and then we try to find out the energy function. So the lower the energy, better is the binding affinity. So that is nothing but binding free energy. When you get a negative binding free energy, it means that the complex is highly stable and the affinity will be more. Okay. So why it is very important? Because it is the key to rational drug design. Because we have, for computer drug design, docking is a very important technique that will help to do a computer drug design. And it is very important because of the increase in the number of protein structures. So as the number of protein structure, because of crystallography and because of NMR experiments, we have the 3D structure. Because we, from the previous slides, we understood that 3D structure of the protein is very important. Only then we can do docking. Okay, without the structure of the protein, you have just a protein sequence, you cannot perform docking. So 3D structure of the protein is very important. Since the number of protein structures are increasing day by day due to advancement in experiments such as X-ray crystallography and NMR, docking is becoming very popular. And it is also useful for cellular biology. That is where we not only do for drug designing, we also want to study, for example, normal cellular functions such as enzyme substrate interaction. You want to do you want to find out the receptor ligand interaction, or you want to find out hormone receptor interactions. So any type of interactions you want, then docking is going to be more popular. It is going to be very useful. So what are all the uses of docking? What are all the other uses of docking? So to identify drug targets, this I told you, this is virtual screening. And protein ligand interactions, it will help to understand enzyme inhibitor class, antibody-antigen interactions, other interactions such as receptor ligand interactions. It can be used for protein therapies, can be used for engineered protein enzymes, and it can be useful for providing new suggestions for interactions between molecules, and we can use them to reduce the false positives during scoring functions. So that is a reason why we go for docking. So although it is computationally done, so it will help us to reduce the number of false positives. So the ultimate goal is we are going to do it experimentally only. We are going to prove any drug experimentally only. But the trial and error things we are reducing. That is the ultimate goal of docking. Suppose you have thousands of compounds. Now imagine COVID-19 situation. Now we are completely in the urge of identifying a drug. Now you have 10,000 compounds and you test each compound daily. You test 100 compounds. How long you are going to test each compound experimentally? So what computational dogging is helping us to do, we can computationally screen the compounds and we can identify the best compounds which will actually bind to the macromolecular target. So with those compounds in hand, then we can go for experimental proving. So that is the goal of doing any docking. So ma'am, you keep on telling you're doing computationally, it is going to be validated. This computational docking is going to help us to reduce the trial and error experiment, to minimize the trial and error experiments, so that we give up a list of compounds which will definitely have binding to the macromolecular target. Later on, doing experimentally proof, giving an experimental evidence, producing an experimental proof, that is all done separately. So this is initial stage which will help to reduce the number of experiments that is needed to do a drug design project. So all these applications I've already told you, to do a virtual screening, to do drug discovery, and phytoremediations where you want to predict pollutants that can be degraded by enzymes. So many things whichever is involving interaction between molecules, interaction between biomolecules, then there and all you can apply docking. Not only drug designing, you can apply docking for wherever you need to study the interaction between molecules. So what are all the future challenges that is requiring? Means we need better scoring functions. We have the energy functions which will give us, so the minimum the binding energy, maximum is the stability, maximum is the affinity between the compound. But we also need better scoring functions which will actually measure the binding between the compounds. And high throughput screening. So now high throughput screening cannot be done on an ordinary computer at home. For doing a high throughput screening, we will need a very big machine. Machine means not in the size, in terms of its memory and its capacity, processing speed, everything. So we will need a cluster computer to do a high throughput screening. And we should also have tractable models of flexibility. This is very important because so whenever you are going to say that the target and the small molecule is going to be rigid, then it is not going to be the case inside the body. We all know that proteins are really dynamic in nature. They keep on changing shape and structure every moment. So depending upon their function, they are going to take a particular conformation. So if you are going to assume that your macromolecular target is going to be rigid, then that is not going to be successful. So we should have methods that will allow at least flexibility of the active sites at least. Okay. And this molecular docking, it is also having two important problems. The algorithms on the algorithms that is available right now, they do not give you flat backbone flexibility, and the selectivity and efficient scoring functions are needed. So both these things can be done with the help of computer algorithms only. I think with this I will complete the slide. If there are any queries, you can post. I thank everyone for their patience listening till now.
Thank you, ma'am, for your valuable and knowledgeable speech on drug designing. Forum is now open for discussion. If any queries, you can post it on the feedback chat box.
Shivashankari ma'am, I'm Manju here.
Yeah, ma'am.
That was a wonderful presentation, ma'am. I have some queries.
Yes, ma'am, please.
Like I have posted in the chat box as well. Does the color signify any amino acids, ma'am? You have mentioned so many colors, yellow color, blue color. Does it carry any significance, ma'am? Or it is just based on colors?
Yes, ma'am. All the softwares, all the visualization softwares, they follow specific color codes, ma'am. So you have blue color represents nitrogen atoms, red color represents oxygen atom, sulfur represents sulfur will be represented in yellow color, and phosphorus will be in orange color. So all the softwares they have color codes only, and they will be almost all the docking softwares also follow the color codes.
Ma'am, it varies according to the software that we use, ma'am.
Oh no, ma'am. It does not vary. It is universally accepted, ma'am. So blue color means in any software, if you see blue color, it is nitrogen only. Any software, if you see red color, it is oxygen atom only. All the visualization tools as well as docking tools, they follow the same color code. It is not going to change.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. And another question is, what software you suggest, the best software for molecular docking, ma'am, which is user friendly and gives good results from your
Yes,
experience?
yes, ma'am. We currently do Autodoc only, ma'am. Generally, commercial software now, Schrodinger is very popular among everyone. All research institutions they are using Schrodinger. But I have personally worked in Autodoc also. It is academically licensed free software only, which is giving equivalent result to that of Schrodinger also. So, if you have enough money from your DBT funds, then you can purchase Schrodinger. Otherwise, you can very well work with Autodoc itself. It is public. All the results that has come from Autodoc is publishable also. So they accept the results of Autodoc. So it is highly validated software. If you have fund, you can purchase Schrodinger software. If you don't have funds, you can very well work on academically licensed Autodoc software. It is, I mean, first time you will feel little difficult for, I think computer people, they will be easily using it. But the non-computer people, initially they will be feeling little difficult. But if they come to know about the procedure properly, then it will be easy only. Very easy tool only.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. One more question is, there are many freshers here, ma'am. There's so many students have participated.
Okay.
So, to suggest them, suppose if they want to land up in a career related to drug design, what certification or what diploma would you suggest, ma'am, for them to land up in a job of drug designing?
In drug designing, yes, good, ma'am. Yeah, very good, ma'am. Ma'am, the central government is offering one certification exam called BINC, Bioinformatics National Certification Exam, ma'am. So just like our NET exam, they exclusively conduct for bioinformatics people. That is, they have multiple choice questions only. So if you clear that particular exam, then you have the opportunity to do PhD with fellowship, or you can also land up with any pharmaceutical company which is working in bioinformatics, ma'am. So that is one. They can work for a Bink software. Bink for clearing Bink exam, that is a bioinformatics national certification exam conducted by DBT only. Okay, so they will organize one of the central institutions as the nodal agency, and we can work on the. We can we clear that exam. You can end up with a very good job opportunity, ma'am. And learning bioinformatics, there are two things, ma'am. If you are really interested, if you can self learn also, it is also possible to do. But if you see self learning, nobody is accepting, ma'am. Suppose if you go to a pharmaceutical company and you say that I have completed MSc biochemistry, but I know docking. If you say by word of mouth, I think it is. They're not going to accept, ma'am. So if they are really interested in doing some bioinformatics work, means I think they can take up docking. Suppose if they want to do docking, means they can take up docking as part of their PG research project. Okay, so that will help them to get a better job in doing a job in the bioinformatics field, ma'am. That is what I will say. So if they are not full-time bioinformatics persons, if they are life science students or they even computer science students, for their PG project, they can take up a part of their work as molecular docking, so that they will explore more about molecular docking, and that will help them to end up in a job in the molecular bioinformatics field.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Shivashankari ma'am, thank you so much for the beautiful and thought-provoking speech that you have given to our students. And ma'am, I personally have first two queries on you.
Sure, ma'am. Sure.
Yeah, the first one is is there any particular targets where we can work on with this COVID-19? Like taking into few drugs that are commercially available earlier, or some plant-based metabolites we can take there. We target the COVID-19 targets because as I said in the earlier, because of pandemic, we are stuck with all our vectors.
Yes, ma'am.
So we thought that our students can do our mini projects and other things relating to the bioinformatics part. If that is so, why not we recommend our students specify some target for not only COVID-19, even for any other diseases. And could you please go on that way?
Yes,
and how could you encourage our students to enter into that area?
Yeah, sure, ma'am. Actually, all the targets for COVID-19 has been already identified, ma'am. We need to identify any target. All the proteins like your spike glycoprotein or your surface protein, all the proteins that is in COVID has been chosen as a target. They're all currently all the scientists are working on all the proteins of the particular COVID-19, and they're trying to identify a particular compound which will actually inhibit that particular virus. So all the proteins of the COVID-19 is chosen as a target. And in host specifically, they're working on ACE2, ma'am. That is, we have ACE protein to which only your virus is going and infecting. So we try to block ACE so that virus is not going to bind to that. So that we know that after getting infection, only if it enters lungs, it is becoming very serious. So what they try to do is they try to block ACE in the lungs so that the virus will not go and infect the lungs. So ACE is also they're working on so to avoid binding of avoid infection in the lungs, they are choosing receptors that is present in the lungs. So lung receptors, all the lung receptors currently they are working as molecular targets for COVID-19, and all the proteins, all around 8 to 9 proteins are there, ma'am. All the 9 proteins are chosen as molecular target. And scientists all over the world, they are working on one of the more target, and they are trying to identify drugs. That is how it is done.
Okay, thank you. And there is one statement like previously, 3 months before, there was some contradiction saying that all the medical application for rheumatoid arthritis could pave way for curing the COVID. Is the statement is any commercial available, or again I say any therapeutic drugs for this arthritis could be a lead for COVID-19?
Ma'am, the thing is, why now I told you drug repurposing we are trying to do. We are not trying to find out a new drug because it is going for trials and all. It takes time. Now they're trying to identify repurposing only existing drugs. They're trying to work against COVID-19. This arthritis, it is a true statement only, ma'am, because if you see all the proteins, whatever targets that we are going to choose, they're not going to be that much different from each other. So they tried with arthritis and it was giving good results only. So that is also one way by which they were trying to prove that drug repurposing can be helpful in eradicating new diseases. Ma'am. That is a true statement. Yeah, yes.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Thank you, thank you. And how do our UG researchers, how should they take into their projects, ma'am? And what level? Because like we have students, we have a plan of like making an interdisciplinary projects, like two students the science. Yeah, that is what we have. Our further plan in January is this one, ma'am. January 2021, we have a intercollaborative projects with the interdisciplinary departments in our college. So in that way, how could let this program be the awareness what they need to create their knowledge, so that when they enter into the project, they should not see something Greek and Latin.
Yeah,
So
true.
in that way, I want you to share with the students how could they educate themselves personally too.
True, ma'am, true. Ma'am, I personally, at undergraduate level, what we try to say is they can choose any plant of their interest, ma'am, and they can try to isolate the phytoconstituents, active compounds, and they can visualize the structure of the active compounds. And with the help of docking, they will be able to identify whether a particular compound, but suppose we know, no, ma'am, some medicinal plants, we know that this particular medicinal plant is having anti-arthritic property or anti-cancer property or anti-diabetic property. So those medicinal plants, if it is not being worked and if it is very rare or it is region specific, we can choose those plants and they can isolate the active compounds. They can do GCMS and find out the active compounds, ma'am. So from the active compounds, with the help of molecular docking, they can choose, they can find out whether any of these compounds is really having that anti-diabetic or anti-cancer property. Like that, you can work on it, ma'am. How you can make it as interdisciplinary means like doing till active compound identification, maybe the science people can do molecular docking, maybe the computer science people can help them to do it. So like that you can make it as an interdisciplinary work, ma'am. And if you want to like you, even if your biotechnology lab is having animal studies work and all, means later on they can work with animal studies also. That also will be three departments together. So biochemistry people, they can work on isolation of active compound. Computer science people, they can do the docking, and if they are able to identify one compound, and if your biotechnology lab is it is having animal studies work, means you can incorporate that also, so that three departments together, they can work together. So like that, you can choose the plants, different plant sources, or some one for one you can give a plant source, for one you can give a marine source, you can give animal sources. Like that, you can, for each one you can give different sources and you can ask them to work.
Thank you, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the beautiful suggestion. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you have some queries in the box also, ma'am. Like Manju has already, she has asked about the software.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And yeah, the queries are no queries. Students, if you have queries, you can just unmute yourself, or else you can type the same in the chat box. There is a feedback link given over there at the chat box. Kindly fill it. Lalita ma'am, can we proceed?
Thank you, ma'am, for your knowledge showered on us. Dear participants, kindly fill your feedback form in the chat box.
Ma'am, Dhanabal sir is there, ma'am. Can you ask him to say a few words, ma'am?
Dhanabal sir is there. Welcome, Dhanabal sir. Good evening, Dhanabal sir. Sir, good evening. Dhanabal sir.
Ma'am, I think she has left the meeting.
I'll just make a call and I'll ask him to join, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am. Yeah, ma'am, you can proceed. Meanwhile, I'll call sir and get back to you.
Sure. Yeah, ma'am, shall I leave the meeting then? Yeah.
No, ma'am. Like you can answer the questions now, ma'am.
Okay.
Dear participants, is anybody has a query? You can post to ma'am in the chat box, and the feedback form is given and you can fill it. Ma'am, sir has joined.
Yeah. Madam, Shivashankari ma'am, நீங்க அந்த slide எடுத்துடலாம். Like, you can stop presenting, ma'am. Oh, yeah. Yeah, ma'am. Thank you. Dhanabal sir, good evening, Dhanabal sir. Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Sir.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, sir. So we request Dhanabal.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yeah, he has some network issues.
அதோட மறந்த
Madam, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
sir.
We request Dr. Dhanavalan sir, the chief coordinator of the DPT Star Scheme of RVS CAS, to shower us his blessing to our students and all the faculties over here. Sir, you can.
Madam, good evening, ma'am. Madam, good evening. Am I
Good
audible,
evening.
ma'am?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you're
Madam,
audible.
good evening. A very good presentation, ma'am. Ma'am, very good evening to one and all present here, ma'am. This was a very good presentation. Need students, they have a little bit knowledge about bioinformatics. It has initiated the students to, and also triggered the students to step into the research platform in the UG level itself. And we all thank the expert for delivering such a what I can tell, such a good and also such a precious keynotes on this platform in the webinar. And I thank all of you for listening. And our students might have got some information from this. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yes, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir,
Such a
you're
good presentation.
you're audible.
தமிழ்ல சொல்ல போனா it is very nice and get a UG level it will trigger the students to get into the research. First of all, I would like to thank the DBT also for providing us a what is the star scheme for this program. And once again, I thank one and all present in this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir,
Thank you,
for
ma'am.
your valuable speech.
Thank you.
Now I invite Mr. Shivaganesh, sir, Associate Professor, to give vote of thanks.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yes, sir.
So, good evening to all. On this wonderful evening, on behalf of our management and the Department of Biochemistry, Ratanavel Subramaniam College of Arts and Science, Sulur, Coimbatore, I would like to present the vote of thanks. I feel immense pleasure to take this opportunity to propose the vote of thanks in DBT Star Scheme Interdepartmental Activities webinar on computer-aided drug design. I would like to thank our respected chief guest of today's webinar, Dr. Shivashankari, Assistant Professor in Bioinformatics, Nirmala College for Women, Coimbatore, for delivering the nice lecture on computer-aided drug design in her busy schedule. She has clearly delivered the concept of drug designing process in a very perfect manner. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your wonderful presentation. Your presentation was very effective and highly informative for us. I heartfelt thanks to the management for giving permission and motivating us for conducting this webinar. I extend our sincere thanks to our beloved principal, Dr. T. Shivakumar sir, for being our backbone in our endeavor and constantly motivating and inspiring us in many activities. A warm thanks to our Vice Principal, Sir, Dr. M.P. Ayyapadas, Sir, IQAC Coordinator, Head, Department of Biotechnology, and Dr. Dhanavalan, Sir, Head, Department of Microbiology, and a DBT Star Scheme Coordinator of our college, for giving a constant support and guidance for us in this webinar. I special heartfelt thanks to Dr. Rajendran, Sir, Expert Committee Member, DBT Star Scheme, New Delhi, for instating the proper guidance and advices to motivate us for enhancing the quality education and research activity in future Star College status. I extend my gratitude to the respect head of the department, Mrs. Shamina ma'am, for encouraging us to achieve many endeavors. Thank you so much, ma'am. I would like to thank Mrs. Manju ma'am for arranging the chief guest and in the right time for this webinar and deliver the welcome address. I thank to Lalita ma'am for her nice emoji in this webinar. And I thank the special thanks to the dynamic organizing committee team, the organizing secretary Anita ma'am and Kavita ma'am, and organizing committee members of all faculty members of Biochemistry department for contributing their supports and efforts for their webinars. And I thank to the technical and non-technical team, those who have helped us in this webinar. And thanks to Vinit sir for designing the invitation on time. And thank you so much for participants who came from their various institutions. And thank you, my dear students, for your patience for this webinar. Thank you so much, one and all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you for the opportunity. I hope I was able to at least share a little bit of knowledge with your students. I think it was reachable. I don't know. You should ask and you should please let me know.
Sure, we are collecting the feedback, ma'am. On the other hand, we will consolidate and surely we'll send a report to you. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was not a little knowledge. It was a handful of knowledge for us during this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll just leave the meeting. Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you.